Welcome to part 3 of And the Horse You Rode In On.
Wait a minute, Pilgrim.
What do you want, Mini John Wayne?
You talk about the 50s, and I dominated that area. I barely got a mention. Everybody flocked to the movies just to see me because my name was on it. I ought to pop you in the mouth.
Actually, you're right. John Wayne was one of the major influences, and I'm a big fan of you and your movies. And actually, most of this part is dedicated to John Wayne.
That's more like it, Pilgrim.
John Wayne was born Marion Mitchell Morrison in 1907. A former football player at USC, Wayne decided to get into pictures during the 1920s. He started out doing odd jobs around studios as a prop man, and eventually got some small roles in John Ford pictures. Ford really liked Wayne, but as already mentioned, it was Raoul Walsh that gave Wayne his big break in 1930's The Big Trail. The movie hasn't aged well. It was a big enough hit in its day to give Wayne a permanent role as a B-movie star and made him a household name. Of course, Stagecoach greatly enhanced Wayne's reputation as someone who could star in much more serious subject matter. I already mentioned that the Bees were fading by 1939, and so did many of their stars. Wayne only took off from there. The Duke, as Wayne was nicknamed, shifted mostly to war pictures to support World War II. He had been rejected from military due to his old football injury and flat feet. In the post-war period, Wayne's career was kicked into high gear. He did successful films like Three Godfathers, Angel and the Bad Man, and John Ford's Cavalry trilogy that included the highly praised She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. The mere mention of Wayne's name began to invoke images of the mythical West and the strong, brave man who tamed it. One of the most critically acclaimed films that Wayne did in this period was Howard Hawks' Red River. Hawks is one of the few directors who could claim any sort of equal footing with John Ford in creating great Western mythos. Hawks even confessed to stealing some of Ford's tricks, but the rivalry was always friendly, with Hawks receiving help from Ford while working on River. Wayne played a determined and single-minded cattle boss in the post-Civil War period. Wayne usually played the good guy who swept in to save the day, but here he played a nasty, dislikable character who became a threat to everyone on the drive, including his adopted son, played by Montgomery Clift. The film is strong from start to finish, with some lavish backgrounds and a gritty performance by Wayne. Fairly famously, John Ford was supposedly quoted as saying, "I never knew the big son of a bitch could act." John Wayne did not strictly stick to westerns, however, and a good one to check out is 1952's The Quiet Man, once again directed by John Ford. It has a strong Irish setting and a good sense of humor.
Is that all you have to say about the greatest cowboy in Western movie history?
John Wayne, I know him. All hat, no acting.
I'm gonna bell him in the mouth.
Why do you keep coming back here? Eesh.
I got some Injuns to go fight, go find my niece, maybe save a border town. And I think in between there I'll probably fight some World War II battles.
An ambitious man, folks. John Wayne continued to have success at the box office with films like 1953's Hondo. The movie was a pretty simple tale of Indians attacking some settlers and the Duke leading them to safety with the cavalry at a fort. Wayne plays his lead role solidly, and the movie was very popular. The iconic picture of Wayne with his dog is one of the best-known images of the legendary actor. The movie may not be his best work, but it should be remembered as one of his great successes. In 1956, Wayne got together with John Ford again to make, in this narrator's opinion, the greatest movie of his long career. The Searchers once again took Wayne out of his typical good guy role. He plays Ethan Edwards. Edwards is a racist against Native Americans, a Confederate who refused to surrender, and possibly a wanted man. When his brother's family is killed in an Indian raid, Edwards picks up the trail with the express purpose of finding his brother's 2 daughters, who were kidnapped rather than killed in the raid. Eventually, the older girl is found dead. Edwards, along with a family friend, who is a boy he once saved, searches for 5 long years to find the remaining girl. The real climax is Edward's hatred coming to a boil and deciding to kill the girl since she's been spoiled by her time with the Native Americans. I won't give much more away since the film is something to experience. The movie carries in it a sort of hopelessness, yet perseverance, that cannot be described without watching it. The scenery looks really beautiful in typical John Ford style, and the characters come across as subtly created with depth and realism that's hard to get in some shoot-'em-ups. Wayne continued a good progression in his career throughout the period. He starred in big hits that all still hold water like Rio Bravo, The Sons of Katie Elder, The War Wagon, and El Dorado. The 60s actually saw a little bit of fade from the luster of the Western, but Wayne continued on strong despite getting a little long in the tooth himself and surviving a bout with cancer that cost him almost a lung and a half of his other one.
Yes, John Wayne proved himself to be a big box office draw time and again, but failed to draw the accolades of the Oscar. He had actually accepted Gary Cooper's Academy Award for High Noon in place of the absent actor, but could not capture the award for himself.
He deserved nothing and he should like it.
You're still down there? Are you okay?
Okay enough to inform you that Wayne was no Olivet.
Well, John Wayne admittedly did have his deficiencies as an actor, but you can't fault a guy for knowing what he's good at and doing it well and doing it a lot.
I can and I will. John Wayne was no actor at all, period.
What did that guy say?
Hide me.
John Wayne did finally receive the accolades he had earned over his career when he won for Best Actor in 1969's True Grit. In the movie, the aging Wayne played an overweight, nasty, one-eyed U.S. Marshal named Rooster Cogburn, who was employed by a girl to find her father's killer. Glenn Campbell gives a forgettable performance as Cogburn's tag-along, but the movie is solid on the whole. Many felt Wayne simply won for not playing the typical role, and maybe the award was more for a lifetime of achievement. But that does underestimate that Wayne did give a subtle and strong performance as the vicious and determined Cogburn. The film has aged very well, and I would recommend it for any Western fan. Wayne continued to act after True Grit, but his time was growing short. Wayne was already over 60 by this time, and it was clear that he was struggling to keep his weight down. He did a few more truly memorable westerns. The Cowboys is a good movie about a tough trail boss, a la Red River, who is mellowed a bit with age and is forced to take small boys along on his cattle drive. Big Jake is a revenge tale with Wayne playing Jake McCandles, who goes into Mexico to get back his grandson and kill the men who murdered members of his estranged family. The movie has a very exciting action plot. Rooster Cogburn and the Lady was Wayne's only true sequel, following up on True Grit, and is a nice solid movie overall. The Shootist was Wayne's last film. Released in 1976, the film tells the story of an aging gunfighter who is dying of cancer and decides to go out in one last blaze of glory while ridding a town of some troublesome characters. Wayne is strong in what is a fairly sad film. No one is sure if Wayne knew that he was dying of cancer in real life while shooting the movie, but the context seems to suggest that he did. Wayne passed away from cancer in 1979 and left us one of the most prolific and interesting careers. No Western hero is more recognizable or contributed more to the movies of the genre.
One other phenomenon that we should deal with real quick is that of the TV Western. Now, it's not surprising that the Western once again made its foray into another genre. Old stars like Autry and Rogers actually extended their careers with the use of the TV. Shows like Rye Hyde, High Chaparral, Bonanza were seen in places all over the world for many, many years. And they had all sorts of stereotypical characters we can talk about. Lawmen, gamblers, and cowboys.
Hey, card the winner.
Hey, aren't you the one that cheated me on cards last night?
Hey, fellas, we don't need this.
Hey, he's bleeding!
I think he's dead.
Don't worry about it. There's at least a couple more of those guys running around.
There are a couple things I want to mention before we wrap this up. Now, I started out training professionally as a historian, and so I'll be the first to admit that Westerns have little to do with real history. I mentioned William S. Hart and his attempts at realism, but even he had to produce overly dramatic situations. Movies are supposed to be exciting and fun, so I can't really fault them for adding mythos to the genre. So remember, watch westerns for the fun rather than the history. Also, you may think that I've been poking fun of westerns with these little skits and jokes, but I want to point out that westerns have always had a good sense of humor and a good sense of parody as well. A few of the best movies for this are Blazing Saddles and Support Your Local Sheriff. There are also westerns built purely for the humor, like The Cyan Social Club starring Jimmy Stewart and McClintock starring John Wayne. Cowboys have always had a good sense of humor, and we should all embrace it.
Well, that wraps up part 3, folks. Stay tuned.
Wait! You didn't even mention half my films.
John Wayne did way too many films to mention in this one little period. Inside 10 minutes, I couldn't get them all fitted in. Nobody wants to see me just read off a list of films. The audience can go out and research it for themselves if they want to know more.
Sounds pretty lazy to me, Pilgrim.
Stay tuned for part 4, folks.